All right. As usual, we are going to start in the South. And I just want to say again, as I do every week, we're still covering operations that took place in the window of time since you last saw me. You have not seen multiple videos. I have not reshown any videos in the 9 months that we've been covering this war. So and that will continue this week, perhaps after the war, after a ceasefire. We can take some time and reorganize videos into various different ways to show the way the tactics and strategies have been used by the Palestinian resistance. But for now, we're still just going day by day, blow by blow of the operations, which have consistently been carried out, and we're so this week. We're going to start in the South, and we've talked on a number of the last episodes about the Philadelphia corridor. We've actually added it to our map here. Thanks to Maxwell for this map. And adding the corridor was something that I hummed and hawed on for a while because I wasn't sure how the resistance was going to handle this and how the Israelis were going to handle this. There was a lot of talk. I mean, if we go back, it was May 6th. May 6th and 7th is the day that the Israelis invaded Rafah and came along the Philadelphia corridor, closed the Rafah crossing to pedestrian traffic. So nobody with injuries is able to leave the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is sealed. And the Kerem Shalom crossing from Israel is just further down to the south of the Rafah crossing on that map that you see there. And last week I showed you how aid through this corridor has basically stopped entirely. The population has been pushed into Al Mawasi, which you can see up there on the coast in front of Khan Yunis, the former Israeli settlements. And as Nora said, on Monday, an operation began in Khan Yunis from the 98th Division of the Israeli military, which is this unit, this division that's been roving. They're the unit that was fighting in the Jabalia camp a few weeks ago, a couple months ago now, I guess, when the soldier was captured that nobody in Israel has acknowledged was captured, but we clearly saw him being dragged through the tunnels of the Jabalia camp. That was the 98th Division. And then in the recent invasion of Tel El Hawa, which is downtown Gaza City, that was the 98th Division as well. They pulled out of Tel El Hawa last week and are invading Khan Yunis this week. And they killed 70 people within the first few hours. The number's well over 100 now since this operation began. More than 50 airstrikes on the Khan Yunis area specifically. And of course, as Nora pointed out, the airstrikes and artillery shelling still happens all throughout the Gaza Strip, regardless of the battle space in question. But the battle space at this point right now is predominantly in Rafah. You can see Rafah there. Rafah is a single refugee camp, according to the United Nations, a single refugee camp and the city. But the people of Rafah divide up Rafah into their own blocks. And you could see Tel Sultan is one of the major areas that fighting has been in the last few weeks. But this is, again, a 3-month, coming up on 3 months of this operation in Rafah that was supposed to, according to the Israelis, route the final 4 battalions of the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 brigades, which I've pointed out numerous times on this show is a meaningless distinction. It doesn't encapsulate how many fighters are in each battalion. It doesn't encapsulate the ability for the battalions to merge. It doesn't include special forces battalions. So these 4 battalions in Rafah were said to be by the IDF the easiest of the fights that they have had. And they said, Netanyahu said at the beginning, and the defense ministry at the beginning said, it was only going to be a few weeks in Rafah. And here we are coming up on 3 months. And we have a packed show for you this week with resistance videos from Rafah. So let's get started on those. Number 1, Tamara, is a Soraya Al-Quds Islamic Jihad sniper here. You see him with his 50 cal Sayad sniper rifle, which is similar to the Al-Ghul that the Qassam brigades use. And as usual, Soraya Al-Quds gives us a little bit longer view so we can watch him set up here. You can see him calibrate his scope. You can see his positioning. We're watching 4 Israeli soldiers scurry across the street here, and they're getting red triangles, of course, for the listening audience. And we see the sniper set up here. He's got a GoPro on his head, and you can see on the right there, you can see the round for this rifle. It's a huge round for the 50 cal rifle. And we're watching him load it up here. And again, we're going to edit out the successful hit to keep these videos PG. So we dropped that second screen from the video. But you could see all the things that the professional Palestinian soldiers do that the Israeli soldiers do not do. You can see this fighter. We can just leave it here for a second. You can see this fighter fully inside the building. He's got his muzzle flash will go off inside the building. He's not sticking his barrel, flagging it out the window like we see the Israelis doing, constantly giving up their positions. You can see how quickly this fighter gets into position. Sometimes the snipers are in position for a long time if they have a safe spot. And they're waiting, and sometimes they're acting tactically to respond to what they're seeing on the ground. And here we see the last soldier get identified as the target. We see you could see to the right there, the round, he's going to put it in the gun here, the single load bolt action, and then set up this sniper operation. So these operations are skilled, and they're continuous, and they're hits, and these hits are not showing up in the Israeli casualty reports as usual. That's standard procedure for the Israelis of late. Let's do number 2 now, Tamara. Here we're going to see Qassam fighter pop out of an offensive tunnel, immediately pick up a tank. So they're getting surveillance from above ground, telling the fighters below ground where the armored vehicles are. And he's popping up here in the middle of the tunnel, in the middle of the combat zone, and hitting the tank. So talking, communication, secure line. This is a tank being pulled. But they're communicating with a secure line. They're able to communicate with the spotters above ground to the fighters in the tunnels and navigate their tunnel network in order to come out here within a 50-meter shot here of a Merkava tank that we're going to watch be dragged away here by a D9 armored bulldozer. And there's multiple different types of kills for a tank. So this is a mobility kill. Depending on where the Yasin round penetrated, this vehicle needs to be fixed. And the time scale for these vehicles to be fixed is often 6 months to a year or more. These aren't just, as I said last show, something that you throw in and swap out a new part. It's a significant fix to fix these vehicles, and it's part of what leads to the shortage of tanks that Israel admitted to in their Supreme Court, and we talked about on the show last week. That's starting to build up, and Hezbollah mocked the Israelis this week by releasing a video that said, if you invade Lebanon, you'll not only be short of tanks, but you won't have any tanks left. And so Rafah has been doing its part in disabling tanks. Literally dozens of tanks have been disabled in this period of time. And on this show alone, we're going to see 3 or 4, I believe, get towed away. So towed away. And again, not targeting the towaways. That'll be something we have to ask the fighters after the war, pretty much at the top of the list. We understand they're not targeting the medevacs. You could see a principal operating in that position of not attacking medical facilities. But we're not sure why they're not targeting the dragging out of their vehicles. And here's a fighter using a tunnel and using rubble and a tandem 85, which is an appropriate weapon to use. They don't need to use the Yasin 105. They can use their tandem 85s. You see it there. You can see the warhead poking up there through the rubble against a bulldozer cockpit. It's less than 50 meters from there, and the bulldozers have an iron fist active protection system sometimes, but lots of them don't. And that looks like a hit directly on that armored vehicle, armored bulldozer. That's in central Rafah. If we look at number 4 here, we can see command and control still being demonstrated. Here we have a commander, again, on the closed line that I just described, talking to fighters in tunnels or in other positions. Now you can see the two different combat nodes that are in play. You see soldiers in windows in both of them, still 10 months into the war, standing in windows. And the commander is telling his troops, if there's multiple individuals, because you can see each node is reporting back that they're seeing one or more soldiers in this particular position. So the commander says to them in the video, we've taken out the audio, he says, if you want to go to that one, if there's more than one, hit it with a thermobaric warhead, an anti-personnel shell. If there's only one soldier, snipe him, using your weapons accordingly. And controlling the operation from a command and control position. This exact thing that the Israelis say, have been saying since December, since November, that don't exist. And here's the after action report, a battle damage assessment that the Palestinian commander is doing. And you can see the building there. That's the room that those Israeli soldiers were in, are burning. And the commander comments after the strikes, that he says, whenever they are present, they will find fierce resistance. So you can see, again, using closed circuit observation, but also communicating on a closed line with his spotters that are out in these multiple positions around Rafah, around all the places that the fighting happens. And then the commander is taking that data and issuing techniques, tactics, and procedures to carry out the correct operation. In this case, he says, if there's one, just snipe them. If there's multiple, use the thermobaric warhead, which is designed as an anti-personnel weapon to hit soldiers in building positions, behind fortification, behind cover. And they use the thermobaric warhead, and the thermobaric warhead is a fuel air explosion, and you can see that happen inside the building in this battle damage assessment here that the commander is pointing out. So another successful operation in Rafah against Israeli personnel in buildings, using people's homes. This is where you get the pictures of them dressed up in women's clothes and basically just doing the most dehumanizing and idiotic things they can do and taking TikTok videos of it. It's inside these positions, inside people's houses, that they're doing that. Let's do number 5 tomorrow. This is another thermobaric warhead strike. You can see this is a Ssaraya al-Quds operation. And again, they give us the chance to walk through with them and look at what they move through. The rubbleization is just remarkable. It's just, even there was a report from RUSI, which is the Royal United Services Institute. It's a military think tank in the UK that did a Gaza tactical lessons from the IDF in Gaza. And here you see the sniper position. They're identifying the 2 sniper loopholes and the cameraman on this position. But look at the rubble everywhere. The fighter here is able to move outside of the sight line of the sniper. You can see the sniper loophole, and watch both the cameraman and the shooter are outside outside of the sight line of the sniper position and hitting it with a thermobaric warhead. And this is something that we can loop this one again when it's done tomorrow. This is something that the RUSI report, which is based on 44 interviews with IDF personnel, and they're talking about lessons learned for the British Army. And look at this scene here. Look at the destruction. And one of the things the RUSI report says that the Israelis have trouble with is because they've destroyed so much, they have a difficult time identifying and describing in words to their positions where fighters are, where they should be moving, because there's no visible landmarks. We heard Palestinians saying that early on in the war, saying they didn't even recognize their own neighborhoods because the houses are flattened, the landmarks are gone, and you don't know where you are when you're just in piles of rubble like this. And this has been something that has vexed the Israelis, and the Israelis have, in their as they do, have come up with a new term for their training. They're going to train in devastated terrain warfare. So this is basically, to translate that, they're going to train in post-genocide warfare. When you're carrying out a genocide and you're destroying everything, school, hospitals, homes, everybody's homes, and there's nothing but rubble everywhere, you need to train in that in a different way than you train for urban conflict, where you might be able to move around and use buildings. We've heard American soldiers talking about this all throughout the war. We don't see dismounted Israeli military infantry, and the American soldiers will comment, as any soldier will, about how difficult it is to move through that terrain and why you need so many of these bulldozers that we watch repeatedly get blasted is because of the way that Israel has left this terrain, something we've talked about on this program for months and months. The rubbleization has left them in a worse position militarily. And so, again, just further emphasizing that there is no military objective to what we're watching here. We're watching a total annihilation of the Gaza Strip as the goal. The military goal, if the military goal were trying to be achieved, they would carry it out in a different way. They would fight in tunnels. They would hold areas. They would keep buildings up that buildings could be then cleared. I'm not going to tell the Israelis how to fight a war, but you can clearly tell that they're not taking any military objectives out of these. They can't count the dead. They can't count if a fighter was killed. They say they killed Mohammed al-Deif. They have no evidence for that because they can't do battle damage assessments. They said they killed Marwan Issa, the commander of the 𝐓𝐶aM brigades, a couple months ago, but no after action report, no battle damage assessment, and no ability to confirm, and no intelligence on the ground. They don't know. They say they kill these commanders. It goes in their newspapers, but they don't have any way to prove it because they don't actually even have signals intelligence meaningful enough in Gaza to be hearing 𝐓𝐶aM fighters communicating with each other about which commander might have been killed or not. And so everything you hear about the Israelis killing the leadership of 𝐓𝐶aM, we haven't been reporting on it because there's no proof of it. And the senior level commanders that were killed by the Israelis, the 𝐓𝐶aM commanders, Ayman Nofel is the middle camp's commander, and Ahmed Gandour, who is the northern brigade commander. The 𝐓𝐶aM brigades acknowledged those two deaths, and they haven't acknowledged these other ones that the Israelis are putting X's on their list to make it seem to their population like they're achieving something militarily when really they're just going and smashing. And let's look at number 6 tomorrow because we got a Namr troop carrier here moving. You can see the soldier riding outside, likely the commander riding outside the hatch there. You're going to see an elevated Yasin 105 strike in the middle of the cabin where the infantry crew is. The infantry soldiers are separate from the crew in the middle there in the middle cabin. And so we're likely seeing a commander on top that's not getting back into the hatch in time, and a hit on the middle part of the cabin. Yeah, let's watch it one more time here. Again, we've got a video camera recording separate from the shooter, but you can see that they're on the same floor, 2 floors up, because you can see the backblast from that RPG knocking the camera as it does. That's why you see the camera jiggle there. It's the backblast from the Yasin RPG built in Gaza. We'll talk more about that in these coming videos. Look at number 7. This is a really interesting one. We haven't seen this throughout the whole war. We're looking at a Merkava 4.5 tank here, their most recent tank. On the right-hand side, you can see its trophy active protection system. We're going to watch this one a few times because there's a lot going on in this one. But what we're seeing here is the trophy active protection system deploying. That's what the red flame is. It's deploying, but it has missed the round. You can clearly see that it missed the Yasin round. We have burn off on the top turret of the tank there. It's not always clear to know what that is or if that's connected to what's happening inside for the crew inside. But you can see now, if you look on the far right side of this video, you can see those 2 upright sticks on the top of the turret. That's the active protection system that's going to come flying here into the view on the right-hand side. So this is the first time we've seen the APS actually blown off the vehicle. When we watch it one more time, you'll also see that the commander, likely the commander, is riding outside of the hatch on this one. You clearly see burn off. It doesn't appear to be enough burn off for a cook off, but you see here, watch his head move in the middle there. Right there, you can see the commander, likely the commander, out the commander's hatch when that shot is fired. And this is remarkable. You see the reactive armor that was placed beside behind the crew shield that's supposed to protect the commander who's coming out of his hatch. But you can see, let's watch it one more time. You can watch that brick that flies off. That's the brick that you see on the top there to protect the commander. It's a reactive armor that didn't do its job. It actually just got blown off completely. So remarkable. There's damage, clearly damage to this tank, no question about that. And just very interesting shot because everything is happening. And we can see that this time the APS did deploy. Lots of times we've seen it not deploy. This time it did deploy, but it missed the incoming round, probably because the rounds fired from too close. It's obscured in the urban battlefield. So that's an interesting one to take note of there. That is in Central Rafah. And we're still in Central Rafah with number 8 here, Tamara. This is 𝐄𝐥𝐞, also 𝐄𝐥𝐞 versus another Mark IV Merkava tank. You can see it's got an anti-drone canopy on it. And it's hit, and you can watch on this hit, you can watch the rubble, the debris fly into the camera there. You can see the chunks of it. So significant blast on this vehicle. And here you can see it being towed away. Again, being towed away by a D9 Caterpillar bulldozer. You can see the anti-drone canopy on the top has come loose after that strike. And you can see also that they're not driving on the roads. They're right beside the road. They're not driving on the road. They're afraid to drive on the roads for IEDs, improvised explosive devices buried in the roads. So they drive through people's farmers' fields and destroy the agricultural land. And the roads are also full of rubble because they've been militarily vandalizing all of these homes. And so what we're seeing here is probably a mobility kill, it's called, rather than a catastrophic kill. A catastrophic kill, we've seen a couple of them that end up in total flames, and the vehicle is virtually completely destroyed. But these engine kills or mobility kills, they're significant because these are the ones that have to go to the shop, that spend multiple years on resources. They're very resource intensive, like a severely wounded soldier. It's a costly proposition to have a severely wounded soldier be taken care of. And it's the same with these vehicles. It's a lot of administrative work for their mechanics brigade to fix these tanks. And they don't just have spare parts that they slap onto these tanks. Depending on where the mobility kill, if it's an engine kill, it's difficult to repair the multi-layer, the folded armor on these vehicles. And so when we were talking last week on the show about 500 tanks being under service and out of the battle, we've just watched 4 in this video alone add to that number just in the week since we talked about that 500 vehicles. And you can see the D9 Caterpillar bulldozer from Peoria, Illinois on the boycott, divestment, sanctions list, pulling the Merkava tank there. And now let's do number 9, Tamara, because this is another good one. This is a door pop. This is a classic move that Rafah's been using quite a bit. Pop the door, immediately step out. We see a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 105, still stocks of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 105s, which is a much heavier weapon than is necessary for that bulldozer, and hits the bulldozer in the cockpit. It's possible that's an unmanned bulldozer. If it's a manned bulldozer, they're lying about their casualties. If it's an unmanned bulldozer, it's a mobility kill as well for that bulldozer. And there's a limited number of bulldozers. There's not unlimited numbers of all these. So when they talk about going to Lebanon and threaten that they're going on to Lebanon after this, they're going with a very degraded military that's been worn down by $500. Remember, these weapons are $500 weapons that include all of the research and development, the training, and putting into service. $500 total. Let's look at number 10 tomorrow, because we got an elevated 𝐓𝐡𝐞 strike here from the kitchen sink. Again, military vandalism, just blowing out half the wall of somebody's kitchen, but they give it as it becomes a fighting position, and a fighting position to effectively hit a Merkava tank and a D9 bulldozer that are side by side in this one. You can't see exactly who it hits because the fighter is peeling off and returning to his base safely. But if you look where the red is on the tank, but you're going to see a bulldozer drive up right beside it too. So there's two targets there, and we've seen them hit from that range many times. That's well within the 100-meter range. That's well within the 100-meter range of the weapon. Qassam fighters try to get within 50 meters, but that's a good operation that we see there through the military excuse me, through the military vandalism with absolutely uh, no military benefit. And here's a stare down using the alleys in Al Shabura. This is a joint operation between Saraya Al Quds and Qassam. So that usually means it's a Saraya fighter. And watch, maybe we can pause it here tomorrow, right here. If we can pause it. Now that's perfect. Nicely done. You can see the barrel of the Merkava pointing directly down the alleyway, and you can see the Merkava, or you can see the Yasin 105 pointing down. It's a barrel stare down in the alleyways of Rafah, the historic, legendary alleyways of the Palestinian camps. And the fighter doesn't peel away here. He wins the stare down. You can play it. He wins the stare down, fires on the vehicle, and returns to his base safely, which is just a pretty remarkable operation. Again, a lot of courage that goes into that, but that's a military skill to be able to hit that vehicle in that place. And the radar on the active protection system is not going to effectively pick up that round traveling through a skinny alleyway in the camp.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.